So today's video is going to be about the different types of knitting needles you may come across as you explore the wonderful craft that is knitting. Now, I am an established knitter and I'm a little bit picky about my knitting needles, so when I was gathering the materials for this, I realized I was actually missing essential components to what I wanted to talk about today. Let's start with the simplest and most common knitting needle anybody who has ever knit has come across: plastic knitting needles. I remember being 7 years old, asking my grandmother to teach me how to knit, and her handing me these size 8 horrible plastic squeaky knitting needles. I hated them. I actually contemplated giving up knitting because I hated them so much. So the only plastic needles I have in my house are these. They are 15 millimeter or US 9 needles. They're huge. They are nothing like the plastic ones I was introduced to 26 years ago. But, you know, it could be worse. It could be a lot worse. They're actually covered in cat hair now that I look at them, because both my fleeps are sitting outside my office door going, "Mom, let us in." So these knitting needles are plastic. And why do different materials make a difference? Well, depending on the type of yarn you're using can dictate whether or not it sticks to your knitting needles. Now, metal knitting needles, these are my preference, is using metal, tend to be a little bit slipperier. Plastic can be sticky, especially if you're using a synthetic fiber such as acrylic. You get a little bit more slip when you're using metal. The only downside I find to metal is if you're not careful and you don't protect the tips, sometimes you'll get burrs on the end of it, or the coating on some needles will come off. Great example is these ones. These are Addi knitting needles. I absolutely love them. However, and you can't see it, the coating has come off on just this tip. So I run my finger over it and I can feel how coarse it is. And texturally that doesn't appeal to me, and I love texture when I'm knitting. We'll cover that in a fiber class or a fiber video. But I also find that some of the yarn I use snags on that. So as much as I loved this set of needles, and these are circular needles, by the way, these will come up quite often when you're doing projects in the round. I actually predominantly use circular needles just because I find them more portable and interchangeable, which I'll cover in a moment. But as much as I love these ones, the only reason I keep them around is to teach people that sometimes the shiny coating cannot be so shiny and isn't necessarily pleasant. So I'm going to put those away. Bamboo or wood knitting needles. These are really popular. They're really common. They tend to not be as slippery. They give a little bit of stick, which with some materials, like when I'm knitting silk, you want that. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see that there's a little bit of a curve in one of these needles, and it's not perfectly straight. That is normal. Your needles will bend, your needles will warp, your needles will change over time. That is okay. So these are just basic bamboo knitting needles, and I've actually got the same set. You can really see the curve on I don't know if you can see that. You can really see the curve on these. Same set in 2 different lengths, and knitting needles will come in varying lengths depending on the project. Me personally, I'm not a fan of the super long knitting needles, but every once in a while I'm working on a project where I need that extra length. If you are using a knitting needle that is too short and you have too many stitches on your knitting needle, the stitches could fall off the end when you're not using it. Or it gets really bunched up and really tight, and it doesn't make knitting fun anymore. So those are an example of bamboo knitting needles. These, I love these. These are also bamboo. These are double pointed needles. Now, everybody goes, DPN needles, what are those? Why would we use those? If you are knitting socks, if you are contemplating any concept of sock or toques or anything in the round, kind of like with the circular knitting needles, but you have to get into smaller amounts, double pointed needles are your friend. I love double pointed needles. Double pointed needles are wonderful and amazing. I love knitting socks and stockings with them. I love using them for finishing up toques, getting a really nice, consistent, even stitch. Now these look really small. These are US 1 knitting needles. These are bamboo and absolutely fantastic and fabulous. I've got another set. Oh, these aren't bamboo. These are rosewood. So bamboo is just one type of wood needle that you can get if you want to splurge and, you know, spend lots of money, which, you know, if you spend money on the toys, you don't get to spend it on the nice yarn. Let's see if I can just get one needle out. I haven't opened this bag in a while. There we go. These are rosewood knitting needles. I love them. They're very smooth. They don't have a lot of stick. This is about as short a needle as I will use. However, I've actually put my hands on a pair of double pointed needles that are about that long. With the style I knit, I can't really use them. And in another video, I'll talk about the different ways people knit. I knit right-handed and I throw my stitches. Again, I will cover that in another video. But these are fabulous but expensive. So if you want to invest in and take care of your toys, by all means, spend the extra $1. But if you are just starting out and you're not sure if you're going to like the material, if you're not sure that you're going to like the style, the technique, or even knitting, don't spend a lot of money right away. Spend enough that it feels good, because we're using our hands, so it's all a texture thing, but not so much that you're going to break the bank. Now, up until recently, I loved carbon fiber knitting needles. They're a synthetic needle, they've got metal tips, these are fabulous, a little bit flexible, super durable. I stopped using them recently because I ended up getting a set that after my 4th pair of 16th century stockings, they started splintering and I got splinters right here. So while I was knitting my boyfriend's Christmas present, I ended up in a lot of pain and I was rushed to finish them even through the pain because I didn't have another set of knitting needles in that size, and the splintering was just really unfortunate. I know not all of them are like that and a lot of people have never had issues with them, but again, I'm a texture person, so I'm taking a break from my fabulous favorite double pointed carbon fiber knitting needles. Probably go back to them someday, but not right now. Storing knitting needles, by the way, Ziploc bags. I use hair elastics because I have thousands of those lying around the house. I have a stupid amount of hair. Don't throw them in a box or a drawer. Keep them together. I have lost count of the number of, oh, I seem to be missing a knitting needle situations over the last 2 decades that in my accessory video I will explain some storage tips and tricks that will save you guys a lot of time, money, and headaches. Finally, what I'm currently using. These are an investment piece. Once you figure out what you like, what you enjoy, you can invest. For my straight needles, I have a beautiful set of wooden knitting needles. Knitter's Pride. I've had these for many, 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 many years. I take care of them. At one point, these ones went missing for an extended period of time, and I just found them like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, yay! These weren't cheap. They were actually a gift, but I absolutely love them. So if I'm doing anything that needs straight needles, if I'm doing, I do slippers. I love doing slippers. I will use these. If I'm working on a knit flat piece, I might pull these out. I don't travel with these. These I only keep at home because they are wood and I move a lot. So this past summer I moved from Calgary to Manitoba, and I will tell you the humidity changes between Alberta and Manitoba is ridiculous. So I don't want to be traveling between here and BC in summer or winter and to have these swell, have these crack, whatever. These are my babies. So I keep these ones at home. I went, and I recommend, if you are shopping to find a pair of interchangeable knitting needles, buy a single set of knitting needles. Just one pair, kind of like the Addies, and try them out. Do a couple of projects on them, and then pick a brand, and that's the brand you buy your interchangeable knitting needle set in. Interchangeable sets can range anywhere from $200 to $400. I've seen sets were $700, but those were gold plated, and as pretty as they were, they seemed a little bit unreasonable to me. I settled on ChowGoo's. They are a metal interchangeable knitting needle. The reason why I like circulars and interchangeable circulars is they allow versatility. I'm able to travel with them, and it's not hard to order replacement pieces for these. I like how the ChowGoo's feel. One of the things that you need to keep in mind when you are looking at what type of knitting needle you want is the tip. So let's see. So different tips look different. You can also get something that's even pointier than these called a lace tip, and it comes about as fine as that. Really handy when you're doing a lot of fine lace work, but if you don't do a lot of fine lace work, these will work just fine. I do plenty of lace on these. You can even see, comparing these two, how the tip is a little bit different. This one's rounder, this one's a little bit pointier. So with the ChowGoo's, they just slip right in. You screw the needle in, and away you go. Interchangeable knitting needles are very popular with established knitters. They are an investment piece. If you are just starting out, you don't need to buy these right away. And if anybody tells you otherwise, they're barking. This is my fourth set of interchangeable knitting needles. I really wish I'd taken my own advice and just gotten one of each set before deciding on a set, because the first 3 sets I got, I hated. And one of them was the dreaded plastic knitting needles. There's nothing wrong with them. It just wasn't the set for me. Finally, I love ChowGoo's so much, and I do so much sock knitting that I actually bought the double pointed needle set that ranges from 2mm to 3.5mm. And yes, I do knit enough socks in a given year that I will use all 6 of these at least once in the next 12 months. So that's it for the crash course in knitting needles. If you have any questions, email me. There will be more videos. Next video is going to be about accessories and the essentials, and I'm going to probably try to save you a lot of time and money. That's it for today. Thank you for stopping in, and I'll see you soon.